Just a statement before I talk about debates. I think that our country is right now in the most dangerous position it's ever been in from an economic standpoint, from a safety standpoint. Both gangs on the street and, frankly, gangs outside of our country in the form of other countries that are, frankly, very powerful. They're very powerful countries, and we don't know what we're doing. We have leadership that has no clue how to handle them or how to handle any other situation. We have a lot of bad things coming up. You could end up in a depression of the 1929 variety, which would be a devastating thing. Took many years, took decades to recover from it. And we're very close to that. And we're very close to a world war. In my opinion, we're very close to a world war. We have people that don't know how to handle it. They're not respected. All over the world, they're laughed at. And we can't have that. Most dangerous period of time I've ever seen for our country. With that being said, we have somebody that hasn't received one vote for president, and she's running. And that's fine with me. But we were given Joe Biden, and now we're given somebody else. And I think, frankly, I'd rather be running against the somebody else. But that was their choice. They decided to do that because Kamala's record is horrible. She's a radical left person at a level that nobody's seen. She picked a radical left man that is, he's got things done that he has positions that are just not, it's not even possible to believe that they exist. He's going for things that nobody's ever even heard of. Heavy into the transgender world, heavy into lots of different worlds having to do with safety. He doesn't want to have borders. He doesn't want to have walls. He doesn't want to have any form of safety for our country. He doesn't mind people coming in from prisons, and neither does she, I guess, because she's not, she couldn't care less. She's the border czar. By the way, she was the border czar 100%. And all of a sudden, for the last few weeks, she's not the border czar anymore, like nobody ever said it. And I just hope that the media becomes more diligent, more honest, frankly, because if they're not going to be honest, it's going to be much tougher to bring our country back. We have a very, very sick country right now. You saw the other day with the stock market crashing. That was just the beginning. That was just the beginning. It's going to get worse. It's going to get a lot worse, in my opinion. And fortunately, we've had some very good polls over the last fairly short period of time. Rasmussen came out today. We're substantially leading, and others came out today that we're leading, and in some cases substantially. I guess MSNBC came out, or CNBC came out also with a poll that was, has us leading, and leading fairly big in swing states. In some polls, I'm leading very big in swing states because they want safety. People want safety. They want security. They want respect all around the world for our country. They don't want this horrible culture that is developing, a culture of no common sense. It's really a culture of no common sense, and it's not what anyone wants. We want to have a safe country. We want to have a strong military. We want low interest rates, and we want to be able to have the American dream. We want to be able to have our youth be able to buy homes, housing, get good jobs. And we're really just at the opposite right now. It's so sad to see. But as a border czar, she's been the worst border czar in history, in the world history. I think the number is 20 million, but whether it's 15 or 20, it's numbers that nobody's ever heard before. 20 million people came over the border during the Biden-Harris administration. 20 million people, and it could be very much higher than that. Nobody really knows what the number is. Nobody knows. Nobody has a clue. And the gotaways, they call them the gotaways. The gotaways are at numbers. Somebody was quizzing me on it the other day. No, I don't think so, sir. I don't think so. They have no idea what those numbers are, but they're much higher than you would think. Just like far more people were killed in the Ukraine-Russia war than you ever report. Just like the October 7th would have never happened. Russia would have never hit Ukraine had the election result been called differently. It was a very bad call, but Russia would not have attacked Ukraine. October 7th in Israel would have never happened. You wouldn't have inflation. A lot of great things would have happened, but now you have millions and millions of dead people. and you have people dying financially because they can't buy bacon, they can't buy food, they can't buy groceries, they can't do anything. And they're living horribly in our country right now. With all of that being said, I think it's very important to have debates. And we've agreed with Fox on a date of September 4th. We've agreed with NBC, fairly full agreement, subject to them, on September 10th. And we've agreed with ABC on September 25th. So we have those 3 dates, and those networks, they're very anxiously awaiting that date and those dates. So we have September 4th, September 10th, and September 25th. We have spoken to the heads of the network, and it's all been confirmed, other than some fairly minor details. Audience, some location, which city would we put it into, but all things that will be settled very easily. I think it'll be very easy. The other side has to agree to the terms. They may or may not agree. I don't know if they're going to agree. She hasn't done an interview. She can't do an interview. She's barely competent, and she can't do an interview. But I look forward to the debates because I think we have to set the record straight. Why is it that millions of people were allowed to come into our country from prisons, from jails, from mental institutions, insane asylums, even insane asylums? That's it's a mental institution on steroids. That's what it is. When you see the people that are coming into these are institutions that are being emptied out, not in South America, all over the world, including South America, all over the world. Prisons are being emptied out into our country because we have a president that's the worst president in the history of our country. We have a vice president who is the least admired, least respected, and the worst vice president in the history of our country, the most unpopular vice president. And because of political reasons or because of being politically correct, even though she never received
Just
the vote.
a liar.
Don't forget, she was the first one defeated, as I remember it, because I watched it very closely. But she was the first one. She never made it to Iowa, the first state. She never made it to Iowa. She was the first one that was defeated. She was the nastiest to him. She was nasty.
Do you mind if I take a nap until he's done, you
The
guys?
school bus and all of the different things. She was very nasty to Biden.
Well, we've heard this all
And
before. The
shockingly,
only news is the debates
appointed
that they
her,
have to agree to his terms.
asked her to serve as vice president. Well, I don't know if he's happy about that decision right now. This was taken away. The presidency was taken away from Joe Biden. And I'm no Biden fan, but I'll tell you what, from a constitutional standpoint, from any standpoint you look at, they took the presidency away. And people were saying he lost after the debate. He couldn't win. Well, I don't know that that's true necessarily. But whether
You
he could
fucking
win or
know
he
it's
couldn't
true.
win, he
Your
had the right to
surrogates were
run.
wandering around the
And they
spin
took
room
it away. They
saying
said
it,
they're going to use
dude.
the 25th Amendment. They're going to hit you hard. Either we can do it the nice. I know exactly because I know a lot of people.
He just feels
on
bad
the other side
for
believe it or
Biden
not.
from the perspective of a
And,
really, really old guy.
They said we'll do it the nice
What
way.
No,
or
he
we'll do it
thinks
the
that he
hard
can
way.
beat Biden, and he wants
And
Biden back in the race. So he
All right.
isn't the old guy in the
So that, I
race.
mean, they've really
No, I
said
think there's some.
what
I
they
think
did
there's some
was incredible.
identification.
Let's listen to
Yeah.
a little bit of it.
And now
not
I'm
talk over
running
the whole
against
thing.
somebody else, and we're leading. We're leading. So I'm not complaining. I'm
you're
saying
not.
it's for a country with a constitution that we cherish. We cherish this constitution. To have done it this way is pretty severe, pretty horrible.
Tell me what's in
You
the
would have thought they would have
Constitution.
gone out to a vote. They would have had a primary system. They would have done something, but to just take it away from him
He hasn't read the Constitution
like he was a
or the
child.
Bible
And he's
either.
a very angry man right now. I can tell you
Mm.
that. He's not happy with Obama, and he's not happy with Nancy Pelosi, crazy Nancy. She is crazy too. She's not happy with any of the people that told him that you've got to leave.
All the greatest hits.
He's very unhappy, very angry, and I think
Crazy
he
Nancy,
also blames
nasty
her. He's trying to put
Harris,
up a good face, but it's a very bad thing
Sleepy
in
Joe.
terms of a country when you do that. I'm not a fan of his, as you probably have noticed. And he had a rough debate, but that
His
doesn't
body
mean that you
language
just
is
take it away like
bad
that.
and weak.
Or
He
you
keeps
go out to a
he's
vote,
doing
you
this
do
kind of
something. He had 14
insecure
million
back
votes.
and
She had no
forth.
votes. She got no votes.
Yep.
And I think she's crashing. I think when people find out, and I think people are starting to find out what a bad job she did, what a bad job she did on the border. She's trying to say she had nothing to do with the
Here we
border.
go.
She had everything. She was appointed to head the border. And then they said, Border Czar, oh, she loved that name. She loved that name. But she never went there. She went to a location once along the border, but that was a location that you would love to go and have
I'm
dinner
not a
with your
body
husband
shamer, but he's
or
looking
whoever.
portly today.
That was a location that was not
She
part of the
went to a
problem.
place
That
on the
was
border where
not
you would
really
love
going
to
to the
have
border. So
dinner.
essentially,
What
she
in
never
the
went to the
hell
border.
is he talking about?
And if you listen to Tom Homan, if you listen to the great border people, Brandon Judd from Border Patrol, if you listen to Paul, I mean, so many different people. I speak to them all the time.
I bet.
And I did when I
Like
was
nothing
president.
else
We had
to
the
do.
best border in the history of our country. Now we have the worst border in the history of the world. Millions of people coming
How
in.
does that
And our
happen?
have the
He,
same
when he, how did
border.
that
Our
happen?
country is going down
We have the
Down.
same
because
border.
of this, because
That's
of
just
incompetent
bull.
people.
Mm.
So I just look forward to these debates. I think
We
it's very
shouldn't
important
address
that we
the
have them. I
substance.
hope
He's
she
just a
agrees to them.
tired,
September
old, boring
4th,
weirdo.
September 10th, September 25th, and I think they'll be very revealing.
He said September
I think
10th?
they'll be very
Yeah.
revealing. Do you have any questions, please?
It's all right. So a 10-minute statement
Hold on,
before
Brian.
the first question.
Shh.
I haven't recalibrated strategy at all. It's the same policies: open borders, weak on crime. I think she's worse than Biden because he got forced into the position. She was there long before. She destroyed San Francisco. She
Oh, God.
destroyed California as the AG.
The whole
But
country.
as the DA,
the whole
she destroyed
state.
San Francisco. Friend of mine, Bob Tisch. All know the Tisch family. He was in many cities with companies. He said the greatest city in the country is San Francisco. That was about 20 years ago. And he passed away a while ago, and he would be looking down and said, what happened? He thought it was the best city in the country. He had divisions there, lows.
I'm surprised they haven't
And,
spoken recently.
He would be looking down in horror now when he sees she destroyed no cash bail, weak on crime. She's terrible. And yet they weaponized the system against me. They have me. I got so many lawyers.
There's
Now
a hell
they
of
want
a
to delay
pivot.
cases. I won the big case in Florida.
What does Kamala Harris
I
have to
won
do
the
with
big
any of
case.
that?
Nobody
I don't
even
know.
wrote about it. The big case. The judge was a brilliant judge, and all they
Eileen
do is they
Cannon
play
was
the
a
ref with
brilliant
the
judge,
judges.
folks.
This
I
judge
wanna
was
hear.
a fair but brilliant judge, and as you probably heard, the big documents case, I won it. Now Biden lost it because he didn't have presidential immunity. He didn't have the Presidential Records Act. He lost it, but the I call it prosecutor, special counsel.
He was never
Special
indicted. This is such
prosecutor to me.
bullshit.
He, appointed by him and appointed by Garland, he said the man's incompetent. He can't stand trial, but he can run for president. But we no longer have to worry about that because we have somebody that, in my opinion, is more incompetent. She couldn't pass her bar exam.
Here we go.
And lots of other things. And she should not be in a position because if she becomes president, our country is going to be a giant fail. It's going to fail. It's going to be a failure the likes of which this world has never seen.
Never seen.
Yeah, please. No, how about you? You have to speak louder.
Well, if they were closer. And no mic on them.
Yeah. Well, it changes around a little bit. I'm getting other voters. Perhaps, I was doing very well with black voters, and I still am. I seem to be doing very well with black males. This is according to polls, as you know. It's possible that I won't do as well with black women, but I do seem to be doing very well with other segments.
Can anybody
extremely
tell
well
him
with
he's
Hispanic.
lying? Maybe.
Jewish
Follow-up?
voters way up. White males way up. White males have gone
A
through the roof.
hand-picked
White
crowd
males
of
way up.
reporters.
I
that's
don't know.
right.
All we're doing is giving you the stats that you have. It could be that I'll be affected somewhat with black females, where we're doing pretty well. And I think ultimately they'll like me better because I'm going to give them security, safety, and jobs. I'm going to give them a good economy.
The
Black jobs.
authoritarian
We have a
calling
very
card.
bad economy right now. We could literally be on the throes of a depression, not recession, a depression. And
No
they can't
indication
have
of that.
They can't have that. So I think I'm going to do well with everybody, especially when the facts are out. Yeah, please, in the back. Well, I don't know. I know Josh Shapiro. He's a terrible guy, and he's not very popular with anybody. I think that
So that question was about her choices
this
for
election
VP.
maybe is better than Josh Shapiro would have been. But I think other than Josh Shapiro, I think she had some good choices. But Josh Shapiro is not one of them. He's caused a lot of damage with a lot of people. And I don't think he would have been better. I think he would have been maybe the equivalent, maybe not as good. But they had some people that they were looking at that were good, far superior to her. They actually had a story where they had everybody, including, they had like 10 people that she was looking at and her. And they said she was the worst of all. In other words, she was the worst out of the 10 people and her. I don't know how that's going to work out. We'd like to do 3 debates. We think we should do 3 debates. We think Fox and ABC, and we also have CBS is going to do the vice presidential debate. So CBS will do vice presidential.
That will be interesting.
And I have to tell you, J.D. Vance has really stepped up. He's doing a fantastic job. Say it.
Are you worried at all about the size of Harris's crowds?
Oh, give me a break.
Oh yeah. Are you worried about the size of
I
her
had
crowd?
107,000 people in New Jersey. You didn't report it. I'm so glad you asked. What did she have yesterday? 2,000 people? If I ever had 2,000 people, you'd say my campaign is finished. It's
Guess
so
what, Donald?
depressing. And here's a great example. I had in Michigan recently 25,000 people, and 25,000 people we just couldn't get them in. We had in Harrisburg 25,000 people, and 20,000 people couldn't get in. We had so many. Nobody ever.
It was
mentions that.
outdoors. How?
When
What do you
she
mean
gets
couldn't get in?
1,500 people, and I saw it yesterday on ABC, which they said, "Oh, the crowd."
They
was
got
so
lost
big."
going to the park.
I have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the crowd size.
Wow.
And no, they never say the crowd
Half
is
a
big. That's why I'm always
million
saying,
people.
turn around the cameras. I'm so glad you asked that. I think it's so terrible when you say, well, she has 1,500 people, 1,000 people, and they talk about, oh, the enthusiasm. Let me tell you, we have the enthusiasm.
Nah,
The
everybody hates you.
Republican Party and me as a candidate,
That's
but the
desperation.
Republican Party has the enthusiasm because people want to see crime stopped. They want to see a country that's respected. Think of it. If I were president, you wouldn't have Russia and Ukraine, where it never happened. Zero chance.
He would have
You
let
wouldn't
them
have
do
had
it.
October 7th of Israel. You wouldn't have the horrible withdrawal. And I don't mean the withdrawal, because the withdrawal was fine. I was ready to withdraw from Afghanistan, and we were going to do it with dignity and strength. And we were going to, we
You
were
don't know what
keeping our
those words
equipment. We
mean.
weren't leaving $85 billion worth of equipment behind it. We wouldn't have had 13 great soldiers. I know the families of those
Certainly
soldiers.
has never
well.
displayed any dignity.
We wouldn't have had your soldiers killed, and we wouldn't have had 45 soldiers obliterated. No legs, no arms, the face.
Oh my God.
None of that would have happened. And you wouldn't have had inflation. You wouldn't have had any inflation, because inflation was caused by their bad energy problems. Now they've
We're
gone back to the
watching
Trump
this
thing
man
because they need the
implode
votes.
in real time.
I don't know if you know,
This
they're
is a
drilling
meltdown
now
like I've
because they
never
had to go
seen of
back
a
because
presidential candidate.
gasoline was
No
going up to
policy.
$7, $8, $9 a barrel. So they
Deflection,
said they're
incredible.
going to do what Trump.
anger,
But the day
and
after the
hatred.
election, if they won,
This cannot
gonna have
be the
fuel
next
prices go
president of the
through the
United
roof.
States.
everybody's going to be forced to buy
He's
an electric
proving
car,
that
which
He
they're not
shouldn't-
going to do because they don't want that. It's
He
got a
shouldn't
great
be allowed to
market.
be
It's
a
got
candidate.
market. It's really a sub
Well, it is the GOP
People want gasoline-propelled cars.
or
They
the
want
MAGA
hybrids.
OP.
They want to have everything, and they want
The
electric.
G has left the OP.
But they want everybody to have an electric car. We don't have enough electricity. We couldn't make enough electricity for that. And you know
What the
The
fuck?
weight of a car, the weight of a truck. They want all trucks to be electric. Little things that a lot of people don't talk about. The weight of a truck is 2.5 times heavier. You would have to rebuild every bridge in this country if you were going to do this ridiculous policy. So, but on crowd size, in history, for any country, nobody's had crowds like I have, and you know that. And when she gets 1,000 people and everybody starts jumping, you know that if I had 1,000 people would say, that's the end of his campaign. I have hundreds of thousands of people in South Carolina. I had 88,000 people. In Alabama, I had 68,000 people. Nobody says about crowd size with me, but she has 1,000 people or 1,500 people, and they say, "Oh, the enthusiasm's back." No, no, the enthusiasm is with me and the Republican Party, because they want to stop crime. They want to stop people from pouring into our country from places unknown and from countries unknown, from countries that nobody ever heard of.
From the unknown.
That's
Wow,
where
which
the
is it
enthusiasm-
nobody knew. Countries nobody's heard of.
Where is the pushback from the reporters? Where?
Well, you said they're
This is an
handpicked.
extended rally.
I don't know. I don't know if I can or not. I got him elected. Without me, he wouldn't be governor. I got him elected.
Oh, Governor Kemp.
He's doing terribly. I got him
Yeah.
elected. With that being said, I hope we can repair it. But if we don't, the people are still the people, and they're going to vote. We're leading in Georgia by a lot. We're leading in Pennsylvania. by
not.
a lot. So, but I don't know. Now in Pennsylvania, I have great relationships. In Georgia, I do too, but unfortunately not with the
No, you
governor. I've never
don't.
understood it. When you get somebody elected, they're supposed to like you. He's not exactly.
Nobody likes you,
reason,
Donnie.
and you'll have to ask him about that. Yeah, I'd love to see it get repaired. I think that if we don't win Georgia, Georgia is a big win, is a big state. So I won Alabama by a record. Nobody's ever gotten that many
It's
votes.
Alabama.
I won South Carolina by a record.
There's 3 people
You
living
don't
in
win
Alabama, and they're all
and
related.
South Carolina by
Sorry, that
records
bad joke.
and lose Georgia. It doesn't happen. And the people
It
of
does
Georgia
happen.
understand that. There was tremendous anxiety and problems in Georgia. A lot of people say, what happened? And we have to, all we want is honest elections. If we have honest elections in Georgia, we have honest elections in Pennsylvania, we're going to win them by a
God,
lot.
the lies.
He only considers them honest if he wins them.
Right.
Well, he actually said it 2 ways. First, he said it incorrectly, then he corrected himself. Do you agree with that, right? You know, if you watch him, he said it 2 ways. No. I mean, he said it 2 ways because he doesn't really know what he's saying. Why didn't he bring it up at the debate? You know, he had a chance for 90 minutes to bring it up at the debate. He could have talked about that at the debate, and he didn't do it. Everyone said, oh, he said this and he said that. He's just, you know, they give him something to read off. He read it very badly because he actually said it the opposite. Then he had to go back and correct himself. He said
What?
the opposite. He should have brought this up at the debate. If he had a problem, of course there'll be a peaceful transfer. And there was last time, and there'll be a peaceful transfer. I just hope we're going to have honest elections. That's all. Okay?
There was?
No, there wasn't. I was there, and I asked that question.
What a stupid question this is.
Wow. What a guy you are, Donald.
Because I'm leading by a lot and because I'm letting their convention go through. And I am campaigning
generous
a
of
lot.
you.
I'm doing tremendous amounts of taping here. We have commercials that are at a level I don't think that anybody's ever
Has
done
ever
before.
seen or done
Plus,
before.
in certain cases, I see many of you in the room where I'm speaking to you on phones. I'm speaking to radio. I'm speaking to television. Television's coming over here. Excuse me, what are we doing right now? She's not doing any news conference. You know why she's not doing it? Because she can't do a news conference. She
She's
doesn't know how to
busy.
do a news conference. She's not smart enough to do a news conference.
Oh.
And I'm sorry, we need smart people
Whoa.
to lead this country because our country's never been in this danger before,
Says
both
the idiot.
economically and from an outside perspective. Russia doesn't respect us anymore. China doesn't respect us
What a
anymore.
shame.
North Korea, Kim Jong-un liked me a lot. He doesn't like this group.
Oh, gee,
We
that's
are
a
in
good
great
thing,
danger. We're in
Don.
great danger of being in World War III. That could happen.
Yeah.
No, after their convention, yeah. And I'm going out. Actually, I'm going out to certain places to help certain senators get elected. Not
Montana.
even for me. I'm trying to help when I go out to Wyoming or when I go out to
So
Montana. or
generous.
I'm going to different places to help people. And I don't have to go there because I'm leading those states, as you know, by 35, 40, 50 points. I'm leading by record numbers.
That's why going there
I'm
is
going
stupid.
because I want to help senators and congressmen get elected. Congressmen and women
Montana.
get elected. Yes, please. Yeah, go ahead. The upcoming what? Oh, yeah. Yeah, the Elon Musk. So, yeah, sure. So Elon called me As you
Oh,
know, he
boy.
endorsed me full-throated. Great endorsement. I respect Elon a lot. He
I love that
respects
term,
me.
full-throated.
And not easy for him to endorse, to be honest with you. You know, it
Why?
takes
He's a
courage to endorse
fascist.
people.
It
Many
does?
people have courage and many people don't. He does have courage. And Elon endorsed me, and he asked me whether or not I'd do a show on Monday, and I think it's going to be Monday night. And I believe he's the host of the show. So it'll be very interesting. A lot of people are talking about it. I look forward to it. That'll be done on Monday night. Well, you have a lot of misinformation spread about China, and you have a lot of misinformation spread about a lot of different places. I think I'm going to get along great with China.
Oh, God.
President Xi of
course you
China
will.
and I were very good friends. We met
Authoritarians love
right
each
here,
other.
right in that, except we had a beautiful sofa there as opposed to what we have right now.
Like
Right now we
you
have
mean like a couch?
But President Xi and I had a very good relationship until COVID. And I held him responsible for COVID. It broke up our relationship. But I think we're going to have a great relationship.
Broke up our
And I think it's going to be mutually beneficial. But we cannot have it where China is taking advantage of the United States. And that's what they were doing, as you very well know. Yes, please. What's your question? No, I think the people that, if you look at January 6th, which a lot of people aren't talking about very much, I think those people were treated very harshly. When you compare them to other things that took place in this country where a lot of people were killed, nobody was killed on January 6th. But I think that
the
people
who
of
died.
January 6th were treated very unfairly. And they were there to complain, not through me. They were there to complain about an election. And, you know, it's very interesting. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken to, and I said peacefully and patriotically, which nobody wants to say. But
Yeah,
I said
fuck you.
peacefully and patriotically. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken to, and you've seen Maggie, I was at the mall.
Maggie
I was at
Haberman.
the Washington Monument. I
There's a
was at
shot.
the whole thing. I had crowds. I don't know who's ever had a bigger crowd than I have, but I had it many times. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken before was that day. And I'll tell you, it's very hard to find a picture of that crowd. You see the picture of a small number of people relatively going to the Capitol. But you never see the picture of the crowd. The biggest crowd I've ever spoken, I've spoken to the biggest crowds. Nobody's spoken to crowds bigger than me. If you look at Martin Luther King, when he
Oh
did
my
his great
God.
speech, and you look at ours, same real estate, same everything, same number of people. If not, we had more.
Just like your
And
inauguration.
they said he had 1 million people, but I had 25,000 people. But when you look at the exact same picture, and everything's the same because it was the fountains, the whole
Does
thing, all the
anybody
way
care?
back to from Lincoln to Washington, and you look at it, and you look at the picture of his crowd, my crowd. We actually had more people. They said I had 25,000, and he had 1 million people, and I'm okay with it because I liked.
Yeah, I'm
Dr.
okay with
Martin
it.
Luther King.
Yeah, I like the
please. Yeah, sure. We have a constitution. It's a very important document, and we live by it.
What does it
She
say?
had no votes, and I'm very happy to run against her. I'm not complaining
Sure.
from that standpoint. And I hate to be defending him, but he did not want to leave. He wanted to see if he could win. They said, "You're not going to win." After the debate, they said, "You're not going to win. You can't win. You're out." And at first they said it nicely, and he wasn't leaving. And then you know it better than anybody. Wait a minute. So when you think about it, they said at first they were going to go out to another vote. They were going to go through a primary system, a quick primary system, which it would have to be. And then it all disappeared, and they just picked a person that was the first out. She was the first loser. Okay, so we call her the first loser. She was the first loser when during the primary system, during the Democrat primary system.
Democratic.
The first one to
toddler.
quit. She quit. She had no votes, no support, and she was a bad debater, by the way, very bad debater.
Yeah, you want to find out?
And that's not the thing I'm looking forward to, but she was a bad debater. She did.
No, that just
Aw.
answered your question,
She
Mary.
never made it to Iowa.
He's not looking
Then for
forward
some reason,
to it.
and I
That's the
know
most
he
honest
regrets
thing
it.
he
You
said
do
all
too.
day.
He picked her, and she turned on him too. She was working with the people that wanted him out. But the fact that you can get no votes, lose in the primary system, in other words, you had 14 or 15 people, she was the first one out, and that you can then be picked to run for president, it seems to me actually unconstitutional.
Yeah,
Perhaps
good luck
it's
with
not.
that.
Please. So I've run against Hillary, and I've run
She's
against
not in this race.
various other people. I would say that in terms
Yeah,
of
Joe Biden,
intelligence,
and you
Hillary was
lost.
far superior. I would say that. Hillary
Oh,
was smart. She was her own worst enemy in many ways, but she was smart, very smart. Okay? If you
He's
ask me to
saying that
compare.
because
Please.
he beat her.
Would you repeat that question, please? You have to speak up. It's a hard room because it's very big. If you know.
How about you mic the
this is worth
reporters?
$18 million. Oh, I see.
Oh, well, thank God we know how much his room is worth.
Yeah. So I think the abortion issue has been very much tempered down, and I've answered, I think, very well in the debate, and
Well,
it
you're a
seems to
moron
be
if you think that.
much less of an issue, especially for those where they have the exceptions.
So abortion
as you
isn't
know.
an issue,
And
folks.
I think it's when I look for 52 years, they wanted to bring abortion back to the states. They wanted to get rid of Roe v. Wade, and that's Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and everybody, liberals, conservatives, everybody wanted it back in the states, and I did that. Now the states are voting. And frankly, some of the votes are much more, if you could say, liberal than you would think. Ohio turned out to be, they had a big vote, and it turned out to be a much more liberal standing than people would have thought. Kansas, the same thing. And then you have Texas, and you have other places where it may be different. But the issue has been brought back to the states now. And like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. I believe strongly. I think that that's a very important thing. I think when you have to follow your heart. But when you don't believe in the exceptions,
Hard to do when you don't have one.
It's a much tougher issue. But about 82% of Republicans do believe in exceptions. I think and a lot of them are changing their mind and coming even further. I think that abortion has become much less of an issue. It's a very small, I think it's actually going to be a very small issue.
Yeah.
What I've done is I've done what every Democrat and every Republican wanted to have done, and we brought that issue back to the states. And now the states are voting on it. And frankly, some of the votes are a lot different than people would have thought. But it's the vote of the people is taking care of it. And, when you think about the radical,
he just energized
the Democrats
the woman's
are really
vote
the
in
radical
ways
ones
he
on this
doesn't
because
want
they're
to do
allowed
by
to
saying that
do
abortion is no longer
on
an
the
issue.
8th and 9th month,
Look,
and even
he's
after
playing
birth.
to
If
his
you
base.
look at
Brian,
your
hold on.
new
Hold on.
governor from Minnesota, he's talking about, he's like the governor previous, the former governor. I don't want to get him mixed up because Glenn is doing a good job and he's leading our whole campaign in Virginia, Glenn Youngkin. But previous to Glenn, the governor, he said the baby will be born. We will put the baby aside and we will decide with the mother what we're going to do. In other words, whether or not we're going to kill the baby. The Minnesota gentleman,
There's not
this
one
guy
journalist in that
agrees with
fucking
that.
room. Not
He
one.
is the most liberal. Look,
Well,
yeah,
there's
because
Maggie
infanticide
her
is
and
very
him,
liberal.
There's never been anything like this. There's never been a combination. So I'll use the word progressive. They want to go progressive. They don't like the word liberal.
He's
I
done
like
nothing
liberal
to reach
better. I think
across
it's
the
more
aisle
appropriate because nobody knows what
where he needs
progressive
to go.
means. But they now like to use
Do you
the
know
word
what liberal
progressive. But there's
means?
certainly never been anybody so liberal like these two, or even close.
He doesn't
I
know who
think
John
the
Locke
abortion
is. How can
issue
he know
has
what liberal
been
means?
taken down many notches. I don't think it's a big factor anymore, really. And when people hear what I said in the debate, and I think I said it very well during the debate, we brought it back to the states. Everybody wanted it in the states. And very importantly, and you think about this, assuming you have exceptions. If you don't have exceptions, it's a more difficult thing. At the same time, there are people that strongly feel that way, and you have to follow your heart, and you should follow your heart. But
What
that
does that
issue
mean?
is very much subdued. Yeah, thank you.
Dude.
About who? Yes. No, I didn't. Look, if you take away guns, she wants to take away everyone's gun. If you take away guns, you can't do it because people need the guns for protection. Now, entertainment,
you.
they want it, hunting, they want, different things, but
to it.
they need weapons for protection in this country. People live out in the woods and they're not going to have a gun.
Yeah, the country you're
If you
trying to
look at
turn
it,
us into.
some countries, I don't want to get them in trouble, but some countries have actually gone the opposite way. They had very strong gun laws, and now they have gone the opposite way,
What?
where they allowed people to have guns, where in one case they encouraged people to go out and get guns, and crime is down 29%.
What?
And remember this, what is the toughest gun law in the United States? Chicago.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
On July 4th,
All right.
117 people were shot and 17 died. The toughest gun laws in the United States are in the city of Chicago.
There's a lot of guns that came across state
They had
borders.
117 people shot. Afghanistan does not have that.
Oh my God.
Afghanistan, by the way, was the lowest point in the history
Why
of
is
our
it
country,
that
in my opinion.
Republicans who have
That
been
was the
shot
worst
are the ones who defend
Embarrassment to the history
the
of this
rights
country,
to
and I think
guns
Putin
more
would
than
not have
anyone
gone
else?
into
And it seems
Ukraine
silly.
if that didn't happen. When he saw the incompetence of Milley and all these guys that are incompetent, when he saw that happen, when they took out the soldiers first, they took out the soldiers first. You know, if you go back and check your records, for 18 months, I had a talk with Abdul. Abdul was the leader of the Taliban, still is. I had a
Button?
strong talk with him.
Strong.
For 18 months, not one American soldier was shot at or killed, but not even shot at. 18 months, and then we had the disaster of the lift, where people were falling off airplanes from 3 times the height of the World Trade Center. I mean, terrible. But now our country has to be respected again. Please. Go ahead, please. I'd be against that. That Kamala is in favor of not giving Israel weapons? Yeah. That's what I hear. Look, she's
Kamala.
been very, very bad to Israel, and she's been very bad to Jewish people.
Yes.
And I say it, if anybody
She's
I know
Jewish
is
husband and
Jewish,
stepchildren.
they would vote for
Jesus
Kamala.
Christ.
over
Kamala.
me, they should have their head examined. If you think about it, I gave them Golan Heights. I gave them the capital of Israel, Jerusalem.
Really?
I built
Did
I
you?
even built the embassy. I gave them no Iran deal. The problem is they didn't do anything with it. Iran was broke. We could have made a deal so easily. I would have had a deal done within 1 week after the election with Iran. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. It's very simple. We would have gotten along with Iran. I was looking forward to it. I was fine with Iran. You know, we hit them a couple of times pretty hard, but we would have been fine with Iran. But I got them, I terminated that
Another
deal. I got them the
authoritarian
Abraham Accords. Everyone said that's impossible. I got them the Abraham Accords. She's been very, very bad to Israel, and she's been very bad and disrespectful to Jewish people. And any Jewish person that votes for Kamala and her friend, her new friend,
Kamala.
who I don't know if she knew him before, but I don't think he's too good. But
Too
anybody
good.
that votes for them, if you're
He's
Jewish
gonna
or if
smoke
you
your
love Israel,
ass.
you have to have your head examined. Go
Speaking
ahead,
of
please.
which,
They have. The FBI came to see me about the shooter.
oh God.
I think they've done a very good job. And I think they did a very good job with respect to this other lunatic that they have in custody. Please. Yeah. Well, I know Willie Brown very well. In fact, I went down in a helicopter with him. We thought maybe this is the end. We were in a helicopter going to a certain location together,
Please.
and there was an emergency landing.
What?
This was not a pleasant landing, and Willie was he was a little concerned. So I know him. I know him pretty well. I mean, I haven't seen him in years, but he told me terrible things about her.
Okay.
But this is what you're telling me anyway, I guess. But he had a big part in what happened with Kamala. But he I don't know. Maybe he's
Kamala.
changed his tune. But he was not a fan of hers very much at that point.
In his defense, I don't think he really means to insult her. He's just too stupid
Yeah,
to
I
understand the pronunciation.
Go ahead.
And he doesn't
Wow.
care enough to try and figure it out.
On what? Well, I'm going to announce that. I'm going to actually have a press conference on that at some point in the near future, so I don't want to tell you now. But Florida does have a vote coming up on that, and I think probably the vote will go in a little more liberal way than people thought. But I'll be announcing that at the appropriate time. Please. Yeah. Oh, we gave tremendous for childcare and all of that. No, our tax cuts, which are the biggest in history, our tax cuts are coming due, as you know, very soon. And if the Democrats don't renew them or make it impossible to renew because it's pretty close in terms of vote, if they don't renew them, it's the equivalent of having a 4 times tax increase from what you have right now, and it'll destroy the economy. I think they're under tremendous pressure to do it. I've never seen, all my life I grow up and I watch politics, and I used to be on the other side of politics first, then I run for office. But in all the years of studying politics, I've never seen people get elected by saying, we're going to give you a tax increase. These guys get up, think of it. We're going to give you no security. We're going to give you a weak military. We're going to give you no walls, no borders, no anything. We're going to, all these things they're doing. I mean,
Hate, death, and
transgender-
destruction, fear,
transgender
gloom, and
became such
agony.
a big thing. But they do all of these things, but
40
they always
days
say,
and nights of
we're
darkness.
going to give you a tax increase. I never heard anybody campaign on a tax increase. A politician has always
To
said,
the rich.
I will cut
Finish the
taxes.
sentence,
I'll give you
dipshit.
one example. Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security.
That's what
I
Democrats
am
do.
going to
Destroy
leave Social Security.
programs.
I'm not raising
Sure.
the years. I'm not raising the age.
Your party
I will
wants
be
to.
saving Social Security, and I'm going to work it out that there's no tax on Social Security for seniors. I'm also doing no tax on tips. No
Stop
tax
saying
on
that.
tips. So waiters, waitresses, caddies, people that drive cars, people that get tips who have been harassed by this government, we're going to have
Harassed.
no tax on tips. That's a big thing.
He's like a guy who is the entertainer in the Catskills at a
Yeah.
resort that's
Oh,
about to
absolutely.
close
Sure.
down.
Yeah,
He's not
totally.
as good as that.
Because other people
He's
have
an
done
open mic
far
night
bigger
comedian
things than Steve Bannon, sure.
who couldn't get a
Politically
gig.
motivated. I think it's a horrible thing they did. Look,
God.
they've weaponized government against me. Look at the Florida case. It was a totally weaponized case. All of these cases, by the way, the
Not
New York
announced
cases are totally controlled
As a
out
reporter,
of the
this is
Department
when
of
you
Justice.
stop
They
and you
sent
say,
their
that's
top
not true.
person
Answer the
to
question.
the
This is not
various
true.
places. They went to the AG's office.
They should have done
got
that an
one
hour ago.
going. Then he went to the DA's office, got
But
that
this
one
is
going.
why they wouldn't let
ran
me in,
through it.
or
No, this
Jim
is
Acosta
all
or anybody
politics,
else
and it's a
who
disgrace.
has a
Never
legitimate.
happened in
You know,
this
Maggie
country.
Haberman
It's
will
very
kiss his
common
ass.
that it happens, but not in our country. It happens in banana republics and third world countries.
Well, you
And that's
certainly
what we're
do.
becoming. We have no borders. We have bad voting regulations. Anytime you have mail-in ballots, you're going to have problems. France learned that lesson. France had all mail-in
Meanwhile, the
voting, and they went
GOP
back
wants mail-in
to
ballots
paper
so they can get.
ballots, voter identification, voter ID. They went back to a normal system, one-day voting. They don't want to be around, voting for 64 days. And look, the election, I keep talking about November 5th, but the election really starts on September 6th. That's when it starts because it's early voting. We should have one-day voting. We should have paper
No, that's
ballots.
right.
We should have voter ID, and we should
No.
have proof of citizenship. Please. No, the gentleman in back. For who? You're going to have to talk louder, sir.
Sir.
Elon is a very different kind of a guy. He's a very big believer in the country, but he's very worried about the country. He's very worried about the country. And I don't know if it's good for him politically to have supported me, although I think we have a vast majority of this country does support me. But Elon, more than almost anybody I know, I mean, he loves this country. He loves the concept of the country. But like me, he says this country is in big trouble. It's in tremendous danger. Okay, please.
Okay, please.
I like this guy.
I like
like
this
him.
guy. Oh, good.
Yeah. The polls have suggested. There are some polls that say we're going to win in a landslide. People
some
are
polls,
voting
some
with their
polls.
stomachs,
Holes in
meaning
his head.
they're going to the grocery store. They're paying 50, 60, 70% more for food than they did just a couple of years ago.
What?
Look at what's happened to energy.
Price
Look at what's
gouging.
happened not only to their cars,
You had a
where
question I wanted to
gasoline's
ask.
gone from $1.87, and we had moments when it was below that, but it's gone from $1.87 to $5, $6, and $7. And they take the strategic national reserves and they take it out, even though it's peanuts compared, it doesn't last long. But they're virtually empty now. We've never had it this low. And he's using that to keep the gasoline prices as low as possible. He's sucked all of the oil out, essentially the gasoline, to keep the price down a little bit.
What
And it's
in
had
the-
very little impact. But you know what? We have no strategic national reserves now. He's emptied it. It's almost
That's a
empty.
lie.
It's never
That
been
is
this
a
low. And I
demonstrable
had it at a good level, and I
vicious
would have had it
lie.
more if the Democrats would have approved the deal. You know, I had a deal to buy it at $22 a barrel, and now it's going to be close to 100 pretty soon, my opinion. And the Democrats didn't want to do that, but we bought a lot anyway, and we had it pretty good. And what they've done to the national reserves, the strategic national reserves, is, as you know very well, because you cover it. But what they've done is incredible. They've just, for the sake of getting some votes, for the sake of having gasoline, you know, that's meant for wars. It's meant for like tragedy. It's not meant to keep
No,
a gasoline price down so that somebody can vote
Yes.
for Biden, or in this case, Kamala.
that's why it
who, by the way,
started.
is worse than Biden.
He
And
ain't
she's
never going to
actually
get it
not as
right.
smart. Okay, she's actually not as smart. That's hard to believe, isn't it? Yeah, please.
Yes, it's hard to believe. That's
Okay.
moron.
Sure, you could do things that would supplement, absolutely, and those things are pretty open and humane. But you have to be able to have a vote, and all I want to do is give everybody a vote, and the votes are taking place right now as we speak. Yeah, but it's a very good. There are many things on a humane basis that you can do outside of that, but you also have to give a vote, and the people are going to have to decide. Okay, yes, please. Yeah. On what? No, I think she's actually not as smart as he is. I don't think he's very smart either, by the way. I'm not a big fan of his brain,
Oh,
but I
wow.
think that she's actually not as smart as he is. Well,
'Cause that's a normal thing to say.
she's a woman. She represents certain groups of people, but I will say this: when
Mm.
people find out about her, I think
Mm.
she'll be much less. I see it right now. I see her going way down to the polls now. Now that people are finding out that she destroyed San Francisco,
Oh my
she
God.
destroyed the state of California along with Governor Gavin Newsom. He's
Oh,
been a
you
terrible governor.
so
Oh.
mature.
But they did it together. And she was early. I mean, she was the first of the prosecutors, really. You know, now you see Philadelphia, you see Los Angeles, you see New
Mm.
York, you see
Mm.
various people that are very bad.
All the
But
places
she was
that
the
hate
first of the
you.
bad prosecutors. She was early.
Because they're not tough on crime. I thought he complains that they're too tough.
I don't know. He doesn't know anything.
Would you repeat that, please? No, you.
Because
Would you
I'm really
repeat that,
old
what
and
you
I
said?
can't hear
You have to
very
speak
well.
up. This room is very louder.
Give them mics. They didn't give him mics because they don't want the questions heard in case he doesn't
Do you
like
hear
the,
her?
the question being asked. This is all
A
staged.
daily press briefing? Why would I do that? I would give you all the press briefings you want. Look what I'm doing here. But why would I
Ooh.
do a daily press? You'd get tired of me very fast. No,
We
but
already
I
are.
will
Wow,
give you total
self-awareness.
access, and you'll have a
Woohoo.
lot of press briefings, and you'll have
And that is the
from
only
me.
thing that
Now,
he
are you
said that
talking
was
about from me or
truthful.
from a press secretary? Well, yeah, probably they'll do something. If it's not daily, it's going to be a lot. You'll have more than you want. Yeah, please. I don't think it's appropriate for me to talk about it. I think it's a tragic story. You want to know the truth. And I felt that with Hillary Clinton, too. You know, with Hillary Clinton, I could have done things to her that would have made your head spin.
What?
I thought it was a very bad thing. Take the wife of a president of the United States and put her in jail. And then
What?
I see the way they treat me. That's the way it goes. But I was very protective of her. Nobody would understand that, but I was. I think my people understand it. They used to say, lock her up, and I'd say, just relax, please.
Yeah.
We won the
Yeah.
election.
He
I think it
flippin'
would
never,
be very,
ever,
I
ever
think it
said
would have been
that.
horrible for our country and we had her between the hammering of all of the files. And don't forget, she got a subpoena
Hammering.
from the United States Congress. And then after getting the subpoena, she destroyed everything that she was supposed to get. I didn't think, I thought it was so bad to take her and put her in jail, the wife of a president of the United States. And then when it's my
That's
turn,
what she
nobody
was?
thinks that way. I
He
thought it was a very
cheered
terrible
when,
thing. And she did a
he
lot of very bad
encouraged
things. I'll tell
them.
you what,
Reminder, folks.
she was
Don't
pretty evil.
believe
But in
us.
terms
Go
of the
back
country
and
and in
watch.
terms of
He
unifying the country,
encouraged
bringing it
them
back,
to
to
shout,
have
lock
taken
her up.
her and to have
He
put
was
her in
also
right
jail.
there
Secretary
leading the
of State.
charge.
You know
Right.
the things as well as I
Remember?
do. There were some
I
pretty
mean, it's
bad acts that she
unbelievable,
did.
this guy.
Senator.
I think it would have been very bad for our country and a lot of my people, a lot of the MAGA, as they call them, but the base. And I think the base is 75% of the country, far beyond the Republican Party, because we're a party of common sense. And I'm a person of common sense. I want to
Oh,
have
my
low
God.
taxes. I want to have strong borders. I want to have a strong military so that
I want to
China
stay out
and
of
Russia,
prison.
look, they've allowed China and Russia to do the impossible combined.
What?
They're natural enemies. They always have been because China needs more
No.
land and Russia has it. They've always been natural
No.
enemies. And because of Obama, it started with him. And then Biden, because he didn't know what the hell he was doing, they've now become one force. And then now they're adding Iran to it. And they're
This
adding
is what
North Korea
happens when
to
you
it.
don't
Pretty
ever
powerful
read
force.
anything or pay
This is
attention in
something
school.
that is
Well,
unthinkable.
it's
that
actually
they
what
allowed to
happens when
happen.
you don't take your meds.
Or take too many.
Oh, that could be a good tweet. Well, that I
good.
cannot say.
I mean, delusion
Oh, it's gonna
comes
end.
with
The honeymoon
chemicals.
period's going to look. She's got a little period. She's got a convention coming up. It's about policy. It's not about her. I think she's incompetent because I've watched her. She destroyed California. She destroyed San Francisco. Everything she's
Shut
touched
up.
has turned to bad things. I'm not going to use foul
Projection.
language. But
Deflection.
everything she's touched has turned bad. She's
That's
incompetent.
you, Donnie.
The reason she's not doing what I do and she's not doing what she should be doing, she won't even do interviews with friendly people.
Like
Because
you?
she can't do better than Biden. Now, he had a reason for not doing well. And he was never,
Which
25
was?
years ago, the sharpest or brightest bulb in the ceiling. That I can tell you. Okay, he wasn't. But he could do interviews at least. Not lately, he couldn't, perhaps. But she should be doing interviews.
Just did one on
She doesn't want to
PBS.
do interviews. And the reason she doesn't is, number one, her policies are so bad.
I feel like I've
Just
died
to
and
answer your
gone to
question,
purgatory.
I think that
Yeah.
it's not going to change because it's really ultimately not about her as much as
I
about
feel
her
like it's
policies.
4 years
wants
ago, and I'm
open
listening
borders.
to him rant and
She
rave
wants to
before the
defund the
last
police. She
election.
wants to defund the police.
This,
She wants
this
to
is
take away
almost
your guns.
identical.
Yeah.
Anybody that thinks they're
Defund
not
the
going to come
police?
after
What-
your guns, you know, when I was
not going
president,
back. Someone should
I
start
totally
chanting that from the
protected
press room.
the guns. And I think it's very important. And I know I take some heat sometimes for it, but you have to have safety. You have to have, when the bad
Yes.
guy walks in with a gun, you got to have some way of protecting
Yeah,
yourself.
that's
And
worked
boy,
out
that
really
would
well
be-
for our school
You would see
children, you
crime go up at
monster.
levels that you've never seen.
That worked out
When
well for
people
him.
say on the side of the house,
Yeah, well.
this house has guns, we will use the guns, they say, let's pass. We'll go someplace else. You have to have them. And for 4 years, and as you know, the NRA endorsed me very powerfully.
noticed
every
it's
time.
here.
I ran,
Powerfully,
every time.
powerfully.
My sons are members, and
Also
I
monsters.
guess indirectly I'm a member too. but they gave me
Gee.
the strongest of endorsements, and that's
up.
against very strong competition. People that felt the same way. No, you have to have that right. Our Second Amendment is a very important right, and it has to be protected. Okay, how about you? Go ahead.
Nobody is pushing him back. Where in the hell are the
Yeah.
reporters? God damn it.
So there are some of the most brilliant people on Wall Street that are saying that if President Trump doesn't win, you're going to have a depression. I happen to agree.
Nobody's
I think
saying
that's
that.
true.
Nobody is saying
Because I
that.
know how bad
No
these
one is
people
saying
are.
that.
He has a
except-
lot.
They like
Brian,
to say
you
that
know, he has
they
a lot
did
of
this and that.
imaginary
You saw the
friends.
7 trillion that they said it was me for 7 trillion. It wasn't me. It was them. They said that I
That's a
had
great
inflation.
line.
They took over 9% inflation. No, I had 1% inflation. I had actually no inflation because if you look at the categories, we had just about no inflation. But I had a very minor. I actually had a positive inflation. It was a perfect number because you don't want zero. I mean, I'm not going to give you a whole course on economics, but you don't want zero. 1%, 1.4% is great. You want a little bit because you don't want to have deflation. Deflation is in many ways even worse. I had a perfect number right around the 1% number. It was perfect. And to show you, it stayed there for 2 years. And then he did all of the different borrowings that he did. And then he did so many things wrong. Every time he would do it, I'd say, big mistake. And don't forget, they sell hats and they sell stories. Trump was right about everything. I have been right about a lot. Yes, Maggie.
You sell the hats. Those are your hats. You idiot.
Maggie fucking Haberman.
A disgrace.
Well, we had a commission like other people do, and it's always complicated and it's always controversial. And we had commissions that, and I think of respected people, many of the people on the commission, and they would recommend to me certain pardons for certain people. Some people were treated very harshly. A fantastic woman, as you know, she served 24 years for being on a phone call having to do with drugs. You know who I'm talking about. She was great. And she had another 24 years to go. And it was largely about marijuana, which in many cases is now legalized. Okay, but we had many very highly regarded people on a commission, and they'd recommend, and they'd put a reason why. Some people were served time, but they served a lot of time for something that today people wouldn't even serve time by. Well, for the most part, I think they did. I mean, they did. They go through. They went through. I had a commission. It was a very important commission to me, and highly respected people. And frankly, they came up with some decisions that I wouldn't necessarily agree with, but I did it. But I let a lot of people out that had no representation. I went to people in jails, in prison that we respected. I said, how many of these people should be let out? We let out large groups of low-income people that were serving like 40 years for something that today you wouldn't even be put in jail for. We had very few people let out because I said, I really don't want to let people out where they had a lot of violence, where they had killing, et cetera, et cetera. And for the most part, we didn't do that. Yeah, please.
You ain't shitting, bro. This is almost over.
On defense? Federal Reserve.
What's that?
Right. Well, look, the Federal Reserve is a very interesting thing, and it's sort of gotten it wrong a lot. And
Well, that's
he's tending
specific.
to be a little bit late on things. He gets a little bit too early and a little bit too late.
Ah,
And that's very largely it's a gut feeling.
like the Three
I
Bears.
believe it's really a gut feeling. And I used to have it out with him. I had it out with him a couple of times very strongly. I fought
Ooh.
him very hard.
Hard,
And,
strong.
we get along fine. We get along fine. But I feel that the president should have at
independent
least say in
Fed,
there.
huh?
Yeah, I feel that strongly. I think that in my case, I made a lot of money. I was very successful. And I think I have a better instinct than, in many cases, people that would be on the Federal Reserve or the chairman. Yeah. Yeah. Well, as we legalize it, I start to agree a lot more because it's being illegalized all over the country. Florida has something coming up. I'll be making a statement about that fairly soon.
Can't
But as we
wait.
legalize it throughout the country, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, it's awfully hard to have people all over the jails that are in jail right now for something that's legal. So I think obviously there's a lot of sentiment to doing that. Yeah, please. Well, you'll have to ask her that question because she's the one that said it. I didn't say it. So you'll have to ask her. And I very much appreciate that question, but you'll have to ask her. But I've known her for a long time. I actually contributed to her campaign a long time ago because I was a developer. I contributed to lots of campaigns of Democrats, Republicans, and some were liberal and some were conservative. But you'll have to ask her about that. But to me, it doesn't matter. But to her, from her standpoint, I think it's very disrespectful to both, really. Whether it's Indian or black, I think it's very disrespectful to both. To me, it doesn't matter. Please, red dress, red dress. Yeah, pretty much recovered. Yeah, I'm a fast healer.
Ah, wow.
It's a hell of a shot, but I'm a fast healer. Yeah, pretty much recovered.
Oh, God.
No, it didn't hit that. I got very lucky. It just hit the lobe, as they
It's
call
not
it.
because you have
The
great
lobe.
genes.
There's not a scar. There's not
Yeah,
even a
little bit, not
scab.
much.
By the way,
On
that's
top.
not the lobe. The lobe is below.
A little bit.
Right?
Yeah. That
It's
would
the bell.
Well,
Doesn't know anything.
Yeah. Well, we're starting that. Yeah. We are going to start the largest mass deportation in the history of our country because we have no choice. It's not sustainable. And we're going to start with violent criminals, and we're going to start.
Oh, so
them
you're
with
going to be
criminals,
deporting yourself?
and our local
Awesome.
police is going to work with us because they know everything about the people. They know their names. They know everything about them. They know
He's
their
gone
middle
from
name. They know
self-coup to
their numbers.
self-deportation.
And as you know, the other side is trying. Look,
I like
for
that.
years I wondered, why are they
Can't
allowing
evolve.
these people to come in at levels like this? It was incredible.
Well,
And
we
I
got
said two
Hannibal
reasons.
Lecter,
They're
so
either
that's
really
okay.
stupid, and I don't believe they're stupid. Because anybody that can cheat in elections like they cheat is not stupid.
well, he just
Or-
lost that
he
vote,
just-
And the
too.
alternative,
That's
they
what
have
they-
bad motives or they hate our country.
That's called a
And I
humble
used to think they
brag.
hate our country. But lately I've seen where they're trying to sign these people up to vote. And they have to stop. They cannot let illegal immigrants vote in this upcoming election.
God
All right,
damn.
one more question. Go ahead, one more. Make it a good one, please.
The one I told you to ask me.
Right.
Yes. That's exactly what this is.
We have so many ways of making money in this country. We're not going to affect our Social Security. We're not changing it. And I proved that over 4 years. And we're going to do it. It's very unfair to people. They spend their life and they're great citizens and they pay in. We're not going to charge tax to Social Security, the seniors. We're not going to do it. We're not going to charge. And also tax. I say the two things. We're going to have no tax on seniors, Social Security, and we're going to have no tax on tips. Very simple. And we are a country that has so many different ways to make money. We have under our feet more liquid gold. I call it oil.
Oh,
and
wow,
gas
you're so
than
clever.
any country in the world, much more than Saudi Arabia,
Never
much
heard that
more than
before.
Russia. We have so many different ways we can make money. We're not going to hurt our seniors with Social Security, and we're not going to charge them tax. Okay? We should not have sanctuary cities. Sanctuary cities is a way of
Just be as cruel as possible to your fellow human beings.
Yeah.
That's what we want. Oh, is that it?
Yeah, that was his last question, and then he
Oh, all right.
left right after that.
What a shame that we didn't get to hear him wrap up and pretend that he cares. Wow. Well, to everybody who's with us still, thank you for that. Holy cow. I
I've got
mean,
20 takeaways.
where to start? Oh, all right. Let me start here. I think that scrambled my brain a little bit. Let me start here though, because it's not about what he said. It's about how he needs to be handled. So let me explain what I'm talking about.
Well,
He comes out, he gives a statement. It is a friggin' train wreck. He's clearly rattled. He is afraid. He looks frail. He's weak. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's all over the place. Swear to God, if the New York Times doesn't call for him to step down, I don't know what I'm going to do. He rambles. He goes on tangents that make no sense. And then
Ridden mess. And we're going to stop it on November 5th. Thank you very much,
Oh.
everybody. Thank you.
yeah,
wow,
that's
yes, he's a crime-ridden mess. That was perfect timing. He was a crime-ridden mess.
you couldn't have timed that better if you tried.
We'll have
Right.
more live coverage starting shortly when we'll hear from the former president's.
I didn't. Oh. All right. Anyway, so I mean, the only thing he was
Thank you,
able to
Adam.
do, thank you, Adam, was to restrain from calling her Kamabla. Which so good for you, buddy. Okay, it's a disaster. I am guessing that the people on his campaign team, the Republican Party, are freaking out. Then we come
Oh.
to story time, which is to say, as Brian will, I'm sure, speak to in a minute, we get to the place where she's being asked questions by a very friendly, I'm not going to call them reporters. I'm not going to call them journalists. They're plants. And you can see he starts puffing up again. He's like a desperately dehydrated man who's suddenly given water, right? Or you know what you do when you take the paper off a straw, right? And
Yeah.
it gets all crinkled up, and then you put a drop of water and it expands. That was him, because he knows, oh, okay, I have the net below me now. They're going to, I mean, he was still insane and delusional and lied incessantly and whatever, but he was able to be contained in these very discreet comments and answer to questions that I have no doubt in my mind were vetted ahead of time. And he grows in confidence. He grows in swagger.
And he
And
still screws up.
yeah, he still screws it up. However, it's like compared to what preceded it, we need to get him in a situation where there's no let up at all. Because do you seriously, he got one question he didn't like. That's a stupid question, he says. I mean, the rudeness, just how offensive that is to speak to another human being that way, let alone one who's just trying to do, probably the only person in the room who was trying to do a job. And if he's pressed the way we know Kamala Harris can press him, he's not going to be able to keep it together. I mean, it seemed like an eternity, whatever the first 10, 15 minutes of him just like, freestyling, whatever that was.
Exfoliating.
He was this close. At one point it looked like he was going to cry. He doesn't cry, but you know what I'm saying? He looked so lost. He looked so incredibly incompetent and clueless and crazy. I mean, not to use the technical term. It's not a technical term. He looked damaged and weak. And, Brian, I've said this before. I'll say it again. If we lose our democracy, it's going to be largely down to the journalistic failures, to the complete abdication of journalistic responsibility, like what we saw today. It was disgraceful.
Well, it was. And I will only say that Idiocracy was not a film that was made to be a documentary. It was made to be satire, and we're seeing it play out in real time. And the fact of the matter is that there wasn't a reporter in that room that asked a decent question. Of course, they weren't mic'd, so you couldn't hear them very well. But his answers, as you said, he only had one, but there was no pushback. Every time he starts down a row of lies, where's the reporter pushing back going, no, that's not true. No, that's not true. No, Mr. President, this is actually what happened. Answer the question. Well, he doesn't want any of those in the room, and I wasn't allowed to be in that room. I wasn't credentialed for it, although I did ask. And there were others that were not credentialed for it, and they asked. Look, there were 20. I've got 20 takeaways. I'll just go over them real quickly. He said, she's a woman. She's nasty. She's not that bright. Where's the pushback? Abortion isn't an issue, folks. Remember that. 3 debates if they agree to his terms. I'm way up in the polls. I'm a victim. I protected Hillary Clinton. I have the biggest crowds. I respect Putin. Walz isn't bright either. If I'm not elected, we're headed for a depression and World War III. I was a perfect president. January 6 rioters were treated poorly. I know where to have dinner on the border, by the way. My room is very large and cost $18 million. I'm very successful. I'm a fast healer, hell of a shot. I'm going to start the most massive deportation program in our history. It's a very, very sick world, and J.D. Vance has really stepped up. Not once in any of those that he's talked about was there a reporter who pushed back against any of this bullshit that he spouted. That was a deplorable act by him, but it was even more deplorable by us.
And Jen,
And by us, I don't mean me.
Present company accepted. Jen, I'm seeing a Twitter post by John Harwood who writes, I just heard people say on CNN that Donald's news conference, quote, put Harris on the defensive, unquote, and, quote, accomplished his goals, unquote. Can you give me the directions to the universe in which that was true? Because it's not the one I live in.
So I see that John Harwood is quoting CNN. It seems
Yes,
to me,
that's
and
why I
not
said quote.
endorsing.
Well,
Yeah,
that's why I said quote, unquote, twice.
I know I'm not questioning what you said. I'm just astonished because I'm trying to buy myself a little bit of time to contemplate who the fuck at CNN thought that was truthful reporting. And so, yeah, look, there's nothing that puts her on the defensive at all. His only criticism of her is saying that she was stupid, which is not true. Saying she didn't pass the bar, which is not true. The California bar is notoriously the hardest bar in the United States.
And it doesn't matter if you fail it. It only
well,
matters if you pass it.
But let me also be clear that Kathleen Sullivan, who was a Harvard law professor and then moved to Stanford, and is at one point even the dean of Stanford Law, she failed the California bar on her first shot. She's argued before the Supreme Court. It's a test. Harris passed it, and she's practiced, and she's proven herself. And Donald Trump is one to talk about tests when he had to have, I don't know, I heard this somewhere, Mary. Someone else take the SAT for him. I'm not sure.
No way. Did he actually pay somebody, according to his older sister, Marianne, to take the SAT for him? Did he actually have her, when he was at Fordham University, do his homework for him? I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah, I'm glad I caught you up on that because it's not like that's on audio tape or anything.
No.
Okay. And anyhow, so he, it's a lot of it's projection. Also, for me, I don't even know how to dignify let me just step back and say, his showing up at this press conference when he is obviously having some sort of issue and being a shut-in, what someone should have asked him, or what I will ask or present, is when they asked him, why aren't you out there, why aren't you campaigning? And he said that was a nasty question. It's a terrible question.
Stupid question.
Which means it was the best question asked. And his claim was, well, I'm letting her have the convention. What he's actually saying is he can't compete.
Right.
That if he went out there, no one would pay attention to him. His crowds would be small. And by the way, I've measured, and his crowds are as small as his hands. Yeah, it's not the same. It's not the same as what's going on.
Very small, I know. That runs in the family.
Yeah, what's going on with Harris. And he is trying to diminish the size of her crowds because that is, inversely proportionate to the size of his shrinking ego. He feels very terrible, or I should say his sense of self-esteem is all tied to that perception. So I'll say that. I know Brian had 20 things, and so I'm not going to, which is very impressive, Brian. I'm going to touch on some of the ones that he didn't.
Reporter taking notes.
Excellent,
Sorry.
excellent reportage.
I will mention some of the ones that he didn't, not to discount the ones he did, but because why repeat that? But he compared himself to MLK, suggesting that his crowd, and by the way, wait, let me just say that he's talking the crowd that he drew at the ellipse that eventually then moved away down to the Capitol as part of the angry mob that violently stormed the Capitol to interfere with the peaceful transfer of power, which he claimed there was. At the same time that he praised himself for drawing that crowd, he claimed that crowd was larger than what MLK gathered, I'm assuming for his speech, I Have a Dream speech,
Yeah.
at the Capitol. And so
You're absolutely right.
So if you were, someone who did close readings, if you were, you don't have to even be a linguist or a semiotician to look at that and just see all of the flags and self-aggrandizement and false equivalencies and so on. Also, his idea that abortion has been tamped down, that issue, that it's not a big issue and is insane. And as a Jewish person, his saying that Kamala Harris, who is married to a Jewish man and is in a very loving relationship and who has two Jewish children, her stepchildren, the idea that she hates Jewish people is insane and is not true. And, I guess the bottom line I would say is something I just said on Twitter, which is Donald Trump appeared to me to be like a sort of tired, aging out dinner MC at a failing resort at the Catskills on the night before the owner fires him. He needs new fucking material.
Well, yeah.
I said he was a cheap stand-up comic that couldn't get a gig at an open mic night. But yeah, I'll go with you too.
Who's he only gets to take the stage if he goes for the 3-drink minimum. I don't know. I don't. There is no new material. And that's the problem is that the corporate media isn't paying attention to the old material. I mean, how many times you get to accuse people of infanticide without any pushback whatsoever? I mean, what is that? That to me is one of the most dangerous lies out there. If you get people to believe that, do you think somebody's not going to get activated? I mean, come on. It is so irresponsible not to push back on that one. It's also insane. Yeah. It's insane. So I'm a little worried that, we've all said this before, that nothing he does matters unless nothing's going to force the Republicans' hands. Nothing's going to force the corporate media's hands unless something, and it's hard to say this because it's all already beyond the pale, but something so shocking that, they won't have a choice. And again, what would that thing be? Because all of this, if you're a reasonable human being, like even the lies that weren't,
how about we can't make enough electricity? That was the other.
But that's what I was going to say. It's like the lies he does tell are either easily provable, like he's winning big in the polls. No. Or what was the other one? That MAGA is 75% of America. If that were the case, then he'd be winning with 75% of the vote. And when Brian, like to your point about the electricity one, that's just it's ignorance that crosses over into psychological disturbance because it is so frigging wrong.
I mean, and then he says he protected Hillary Clinton while he also said, I could have done things to her that would make your head spin. Well, what the hell, Donnie? What are you talking about now? Everything is either an implied threat or a delusion. The fact of the matter is, he may be more loquacious or smoother talking than Biden, but Biden has been a stutterer his whole life. Biden, when he talks, makes sense. This man, when he talks, does not. In fact, when this man speaks, you go, holy shit, why isn't he in a home? Where you got to get something in him and put those little straps around him so he can't move his arms. I honest to God, half the time I'm trying to take notes while he's talking, and I did, but I missed things. Like, I could have added that whole thing about that we just talked about to the bullshit takeaways of all this. But at the end of the day, he rambles on so much, so often, and so inconsequentially that if you kept track of all of it, it'll drive you crazy. We watched this so you didn't have to.
Yeah, but that's the excuse, right, Jen? Oh, it's just too much to keep track of, or how do you debunk all those lies? Well, one, just try maybe, but there are also conclusions that can be drawn. I don't need to know the specifics to be able to say. I mean, obviously, I've been able to say this for a long time, but let's just say I landed here from Mars, and saw this. And obviously had all of the context I needed to know what was going on. I would say simply, based on everything I heard him say, that he is dangerously unfit, and the idea that he's a candidate for anything is obscene.
I would agree with you entirely. And I'm trying to channel my inner Tim Walz. If Tim Walz said, guys, let's talk about this. These people are just weird. That's for JD Vance and MAGA. What I would say about Donald is he's just not right in the head. He's just not right.
No shit.
No, but like, there's something not right about that man. No, but like, and he is absolutely dangerous. We know that. But I'm trying to think about what would really resonate. Like that was, I want to try a new sort of just down to earth. Like he's not right in the head.
I just don't think it matters. Too much has been normalized.
There you go.
By the media.
Fuck.
There was I remember this briefing out on the South Lawn in the Rose Garden, and I start to ask him a question, and he looks at me and he goes, sit down, and I go, Mr. President, I am sitting down. And he looks at me and he laughs and goes, oh, that's a good one, very good. and then he went on as if it were like we were at a stand-up comedy gig, and he's been fucking nuts ever since I started covering him. This isn't new. What's new is there is someone in the Democratic Party, Walz, who has called him out for it. The press, we haven't. When I ask him questions, or Jim Acosta, or the few people who would call him out, it was completely ignored by everyone else. Now you've got a vice presidential candidate who's at least taken him to task, and maybe people will start to look at it a little closer. Because, folks, I'm telling you, from being close to that guy for 4 years, and Mary, I always, you know him better than I do, but spending a lot of time next to that guy for 4 years, he's fucking nuts.
Well, let me do something. I hope Maggie Haberman isn't listening, or anyone on CNN, because I have a plan. The press, they're always saying, "Oh, he's changed. Yesterday he became president, or he's turned over a new leaf." I think what our plan should be is to say, "Oh my goodness, he's really, something happened, and he was really different." Just be like, he's completely, like, he was bad before, but he's incoherent. Like, we should all, like, together go, wow. I mean, he wasn't even scary. He was just pathetic.
We saw a new Donald today.
We saw a new Donald today who was really weak. Guys.
Yeah, he knows where to have dinner on the border.
Well, no, because if we say it's the same old thing, because it is the same old thing, but we could say it seems like it's the same old thing. But guys, it was different because he seemed really weak and he seemed incoherent or something.
Yeah, I will workshop it, but I think the damage has been done. There's just it's all been so, we've been hearing this forever from the media as an excuse not to hold him accountable. Well, it's just baked in. People know what they're getting. No, they don't. No, they don't. I mean, not enough. Like, did they know that that he has gone from, accusing immigrants of being not the best people to like, they're emptying all of their asylums and their prisons, and they're sending millions of people, and I'm going to lock all of them up in camps. I mean, that's a bit of a trajectory. It's not the same thing. And it's getting everything he talks about has gotten steadily worse over the last 8 years because he's been allowed to push the envelope, get away with it, recalibrate, push the envelope more, get more violent, get more dangerous, get more crazy, get more vicious because he's allowed to. I mean, from the Republican Party, who, remember, they were all up in arms about his mocking a disabled reporter about going after John McCain and denigrating his service and going after a Gold Star family and saying, oh, the Access Hollywood tape was the end of everything. And now they're like, oh yeah, totally. Yes, Democrats kill babies and all immigrants immigrants of color need to be rounded up and put in camps. And we should never, ever have to vote again because Donald Trump is going to take care of everything. I mean, Brian, this is not an accident that this has happened. You know, you
No.
hear people say this all the time. We're sleepwalking into fascism. No, we're not. We're being systematically and purposefully marched into it.
Yeah, well, they're trying to systematically march us into it. And this is when I channel my inner George Carlin and go, you can listen to someone for about 5 seconds and go, wow, he's really stupid. And then someone else, you will go, no, wait, he's full of shit. And then the third one, you'll go, no, he's not full of shit. He's fucking nuts. Donald Trump is all three. And the people that it's not him that you need to worry about so much. It's those propping him up behind the scenes, the money people, and the politicians that are propping him up, and their means are to use Donald Trump to an end. And the end is fascism and authoritarianism. Don't take our word for it. Don't. I beg of you, simply read Project 2025, of which J.D. Vance wrote the foreword to, and read what they've already started to install. And if you don't think about it, Mary, we've talked about it before. Look what John Roberts and the Supreme Court did. They put a bullet to the head of democracy. They pulled the trigger. And I'm telling you right now, if we elect Donald Trump, it's over with. And the only hope we have is not to elect Donald Trump. So as far as I'm concerned, this is an election that is not about right, left, middle, center. It's not about Democrats versus Republicans. It's about those who value democracy versus those who want authoritarianism. Cast your vote with that in mind, and God bless everyone. Get your ass out and vote.
Yeah.
There's
Jen?
my.
So the only good news is that if Donald actually shows up at the September 10th debate, which I think he won't because he's conditioning it on these other two. But let's just say he shows up because he doesn't want to be embarrassed. Or if he doesn't, she can just have a town hall. She has a blueprint for the things that he is going to throw at her. So he says the same things over and over. So she can have all of her comebacks. And it turns out that she's fucking brilliant and not stupid. And she can roast him. So I look forward to that. And I look forward to her team shaming him into that debate.
Yeah. I'm looking for the media response to this. CNN is not giving me any hope. The fact that anybody could say that with a straight face, that he did what he needed to do, and that the Harris team is knocked back on its heels. Give me a fucking break. I mean, there's no other way to describe this, but as much like the first debate, a train wreck for him, a train wreck for the media. It was embarrassing. It was painful. And, it makes me very angry, actually.
Well, can I tell you, you're right. And there's like 3 reporters that used to cover Trump in the White House with me, and they can't say this publicly, but here are the 3 comments I got from them. Holy moly, what a train wreck. Holy shit, I can't believe that aired. And number 3, holy fuck.
Wow. So the eloquence of the reporters following this. Yeah, I mean, listen, there's no reason to go on and on. Let's be succinct. Holy shit. Like that we as America are dealing with this still. And that there's not the pushback there needs to be is kind of disturbing, and it should make all of us angry, because it's bad enough that he's still allowed to give press conferences, as a candidate, but that there will be apologists for him. There will be people in corporate media, like the New York Times, apparently, and others who will, bend over backwards to help him and try to ding the Harris Walz campaign. It's all a little bit much. However, I don't feel like he did anything but harm his own campaign. Like, it's not, I don't believe for a second that Harris Walz are panicking, or they're probably looking at this and just thinking about
Laughing.
how if they have enough money to run the 20 million ads they can run based off of this egregious, horrific, terrifying, scary, deeply unintelligent, and quite frankly psychologically disordered performance by the Republican candidate for the presidency. So I think we're going to leave it at that, though, because yikes. I mean, he's just exhausting. He's exhausting on so many different levels, and it's completely crazy. So thanks to everybody who stuck in with us. We had some technical difficulties at the beginning, but we got through them. Adam, Mercedes, Kyle, you guys rock. So thank you for getting us up and running. And again, thanks for everybody for hanging in there. We got like over almost 20,000 comments today. You're all amazing, and we appreciate you so much. So Brian, Jen, thanks for doubling up today. It was great. And we're going to keep doing what we do. So I'm not even going to tell you, just keep watching all of our shows. That's how I'm going to end today. Yeah.
Before you go, I just want to add something that Michael Steele just tweeted out. I started trimming my toenails during this Trump presser. What were you doing?
Okay, that's what they call too much information. I don't need to know that. But thanks for sharing.
I kind of loved it.
Anyway,
love you guys.
On that awesome note, thanks, guys. We will see you. I don't know what today is. We'll see you next Tuesday for the nerds. Watch all of our other shows in between. In the meantime, have a great weekend. Stay safe. Be kind. Bye, everybody.